I'd like to talk about some of the symptoms of grief I had within the first few months after my brother passed away. For a little bit of background, my brother passed at 32 from esophageal cancer. None of the doctors could really explain why this happened. None of them prepared us for how fast it would progress. My brother was diagnosed in May of 2024 and he passed away after 6 months of treatment. Because of that, I would consider it a fairly sudden loss because for 6 months we were fed a lot of false hope, and 6 months is not enough time to wrap your head around the fact that someone who you care about very deeply's life is threatened in such a drastic way. For weeks to months after he passed, I dealt with multiple symptoms of grief that I never expected, which makes sense because nobody expects a loss or knows exactly how they would deal with said loss. The biggest thing that I struggled with was insomnia. I spent my days trying so hard not to think about everything that happened and just distracting myself essentially. Every time that I tried to go to sleep, all I could think about was the fact that he was gone and how it happened, and just like a very dark spiral. It was happening every night until very late or early in the morning. I just felt like I was stuck in this loop. I was waking up late and then just not wanting to get out of bed. There was just overall a lack of motivation to do anything. I would also probably categorize that aspect as mild depression, which is very normal in the grieving process. Another thing related to sleep that I experienced was very vivid dreams slash nightmares. They all sort of followed the same format. In them, I was the only one who knew that he had passed away. He was there, but not doing well. I just had to watch him over and over again suffering. The whole time I tried so hard to explain to him that you're not supposed to be here. Like, no one understood what I was talking about, and I just felt very helpless. When I described this phenomenon to someone, they suggested it sounded a bit like lucid dreaming, which maybe it was. I'm not an expert, so I couldn't tell you. Another thing that I experienced during the first few months was not wanting to be alone, like most of the time, despite a very introverted person. I am drained by social interactions after my brother passed, like immediately. I just did not want to be alone. And I think that makes sense because during the last few weeks of his life, I felt a lot of anxiety whenever I was not physically with him. Like, if I could not see him, I started to feel very unsettled. A therapist that I was talking to at that time suggested that it was like a case of object permanence. It was my brain's way of trying to grasp the reality that maybe he wasn't gonna always be there. Once he actually was gone, I felt very lost and untethered. I think wanting to be around people, my family, my mom, my sister, my friends, definitely could be tied to the same sort of anxiety that I was dealing with in the weeks leading up to his passing. Another symptom of grief, which I wouldn't normally categorize as such until I looked in the mirror and thought about more consciously the choices that I was making, was spending unnecessary money, not on like anything bad per se, more like, do you really need 15 new pens in 1 month? I'm sure in another video I will talk about my addiction to buying stationery, but the bigger issue in this situation was that purchasing things would give me very short-term dopamine, and when I was feeling very devastated, obviously, anything that made me feel a little bit better was something that I wanted to do. The last symptom that I want to talk about is questioning where in those 5 stages of grief I was, because I, and more so my mom, spent a lot of time discussing which stage do you think we're at right now, or do you think we've moved out of the blank stage? And like I said in the introduction video, grief is very non-linear. Those stages of grief, you can find a lot of articles about them, and you can also find that they say that it's not that they're in any particular order. And also, I have learned that you can alternate between the different ones within even a day, a week, a month, and go back. And it's not that you're regressing in your progress, because it's not something with levels that you're trying to beat. It is something that you're just learning how to live with, because losing anything is a permanent issue, and therefore the way that you deal with it will constantly be evolving once you learn new things. At a certain point, I stopped Googling the 5 stages of grief because they can be helpful to some to be able to put a concrete label on the way that they're feeling. Sometimes it ends up stressing you out more, feeling like you're doing grief wrong. But I don't think that you can really do it wrong unless, of course, you are negatively trying to get revenge or any of that sort of counterproductive behavior, because at the end of the day, something like this is very permanent. There can be days when you feel like, I'm okay, I can handle this, and I can do this without them, or I am not going to be sad today. And the next day, it can be hard to get out of bed in the morning, or you can be fine up until you see something that reminds you of them. You get hit with that wave of sadness once again, and that's okay too, because we are human. In next week's video, I will discuss the things that helped me work through these new challenges. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.